Okay, this video I'm going to show you how to change the memory backup battery in a Cirklon 2. The backup battery is a CR2032 lithium cell, which is widely available. It's used in remote controls and car key fobs and that sort of thing. The one thing I would say is just be careful to buy it from a reliable source, not a third-party seller on Amazon, because the situation with the price of lithium over the last few years has made it desirable to sell low-capacity knockoffs of well-known brands, and there's lots of lower quality batteries out there that you don't realise are going to run out after a year. So the battery is on the main board in the Cirklon, so we need to open the machine up. This machine's desktop, obviously. The only difference if you've got a rack mount machine is that the I/O panel is mounted on the bottom, and this blanking panel here is mounted in the normal place of the I/O panel. Other than that, the process is just the same. So the first stage is to take off the blank rear panel, which has 4 countersunk screws, and remember to put these screws back into this particular panel so they're the right shape for the holes. Okay, so with the rear panel off, there's another 2 screws that go through the front panel into the panel that's on the back. If you have a rack mount machine and this panel's in this location, these screws are going into this panel instead of the I/O panel. And then there's the 4 screws in the corners. Okay, so the rear panel can lift up and turn around on its cables, and we can see the cell holder on the board here. I find it easiest to have the machine lying flat in front of me, and I'm going to use a flat blade screwdriver to prise the cell out of the holder. But before I do that, I'm just going to disconnect some of the cables in the rear panel so that I can lift the rear panel out of the way. Makes the job slightly easier. If you feel that you can do it without disconnecting these cables, then you're welcome to try. The ribbon cables have latching connectors, so there's just these little prongs either side. You just pull it apart a little bit and it will lift one side of the connector out, and then you just do the other side until they're both free. If you have the CVIO option, the same thing applies to its connector. The USB and Ethernet ports have their own cables, but they're quite long, so I'm able just to sit that out of the way like this, and we can get better access to the battery here. So the cell is mounted in a cell holder, which is a surface mount part, and the cell holder is soldered onto the main board. It's very important not to just try and pull the cell straight out from the holder, because you'll be applying a large amount of force to these solder joints, and you may actually pull that holder right off the board. A few users have already done that, and it's a bit of a pain to get it soldered back on. So as I say, we're just going to get the flat blade screwdriver, or you could use a small knife, and you can see there's a gap between the bottom of the cell and the plastic of the cell holder. We just need to put the screwdriver in there and twist, and the cell should just jump out. If you look at the holder, you'll see that there's contacts at this end that go on top of the battery. That's a positive contact, the top surface is positive, and then there's these 2 contacts in the cell holder that contact the bottom, the negative side. So you need to put the holder in towards the front of the machine so that it goes underneath these contacts at the back, and then you just put a finger on the PCB and one on the cell and just press it in with a pinching action. So screwdriver in between the two, and then I'm turning it, and there's no force being put on the cell holder that risks pulling it off the board, as long as you do it that way. And the cell just pinches straight back in. Obviously you would put a new cell in if the cell's gone flat. So with that replaced, assembly is just the reverse of taking it apart. I'm just going to plug that cable back in there, plug that cable back in here, set the rear panel back in place, making sure the USB and Ethernet cables are going inside the case. Refit the rear screws. Don't put the screws in all the way to start with, just put them in loosely so that you can get the other screws into the other holes. If you tighten them up too soon, then you'll find that you need to loosen them to realign the panel over the other screw holes. So 4 screws went in the back, 2 at the front. Just tighten the ones in the back now. And the rear panel can back on, blank panel rather, with countersunk screws. Okay, and that battery should be good for another 4 or 5 years at least, assuming we've got a decent quality battery.